You looking to move? Why not try one of these buildings? There's just one little thing I got to tell you about. Let's talk.
Be afraid. Woo.
Exactly, right? Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are coming in from. My name is Rob. This is my mom. There she is, Karen. And this is Books, Banter, and Beyond. So we've got over some horror already, right? But this is a category that I think is very popular still. And it took me a while to pick just a few to explain this category because there's so many, right?
Right.
Of course, we're talking about haunted buildings. And I say buildings because the books that we're going to go over are different styles of establishments, right? So we're going to, kind of go into it. But the question we're going to be going on our minds is, what is it about haunted places that keeps us so intrigued, right? Is it the fact that we like the scare? Is it the fact that we want to know what's going on? Or do we just kind of, like it, right? So I picked three various styles to go over, and I think you've heard of a few of these here, and I'm sure the people watching as well have. So let's jump in and figure out why we like paranormal, places. So the first one on here is a classic, written by Shirley Jackson. It's called The Haunting of Hill House. Now, yes, we've had the movie, we've had all those things as well. This one covers a group of people that were actually called in by a psychologist to see what it would mean for people with a paranormal issue, so to speak, to spend a few nights in a haunted mansion. One of the individuals is actually the heir to the house. One of them is actually known to have some previous paranormal experiences. And then we just have kind of a lighthearted assistant to the doctor as well. It's a very good story. I don't know if you've read this one or not, but this is...
I actually haven't. I've read the other one, but I haven't read this one.
So. Okay, so this one is kind of what brought the whole thing. And if you know Shirley Jackson, this is her thing. She does the horror, the paranormal. But I like this one because it covers two bases. It's not just a book about ghosts or hauntings, but it kind of takes into part, and I know we like talking about real world, the psychology of the brain. And literally what this man is doing is kind of putting people through, I guess, what might be an illegal thing to do today, but he really wants to see what would happen if people with some sort of kind of disorder would function okay living in a house or a mansion that is supposedly haunted. What do you think? I mean, it's kind of a weird idea, right? It's a great story.
It is. I mean, so having not read it and don't really know, if this psychologist, was he looking to do a test study? Is that he wanted? Was it
exactly? He definitely wanted to see what exactly would go on. And one of the main characters, they focus on saying that she herself has had multiple paranormal experiences. Right. So he purposely picks her as one of the few because he wants to know from that angle, somebody who believes in it. And then you have the other guy who is just the heir, but he's not really into the whole thing. Right. Wants to know what he would do if he was in such a thing. And of course, as the nights go on, more and more things happen until, how's it going to end? So anybody who wants a more maybe medical way of looking at this is a great story to go into. And I know it's a big study in real world psychology of the brain, of fear.
Is it hard stopping? You've read the book. Is it hard stopping? I don't mean literally.
It's definitely, bypassing other media of it. It's definitely a good introduction. It's not the easiest one to read. So if you've never read a ghost story, I wouldn't necessarily jump into this first. But if you are used to horror and you want something kind of occult paranormal, I would say go to this because it's fiction, but it's realism mixed in, I guess.
Got it. Okay.
Now this goes to our second book, which actually goes under true crime along with horror.
Right.
And we all know the story. We all know the film. Great movie, original great movie. The other, the Amityville Horror. So this is one of those books written by Anson. You either love it or you hate it, but it's not so much the book, it's the history behind it. So quick little spoiler if you haven't read the story. the actual situation that went down is one of the siblings, I believe, murdered his family in the house. And since then, strange occurrences had happened. When the new family moves in, they only lasted 30 days. That's how bad it was. Then they had to leave. Funny enough, if you actually look it up online, the real house, it's actually sold. The home in real life has been sold and it's being occupied by somebody. So whether or not you believe the story is true, home is actually somebody's residence that you're not allowed to go see. You can't just walk into it. It's a private property. But what I love about this story is that it really does take the true crime into the realm of paranormal, because even to this day, the what happened, there's no exact answer. Other than we know what the person did, we don't know why all the other stuff was going on. And that's kind of what intrigues a lot of historians and a lot of detectives, because there is no reason to it. Now I know you've heard of this one, right? So
Oh yeah, absolutely.
thought on the book or whatever.
I don't like reading horror stories because it keeps me up, literally keeps me up at night, because my imagination goes past the words that are on the page and I'm already there. I'm in there. So, but this felt for me because I did read it. I actually think I saw the movie as well. And I don't recall which one was better or worse, because we're talking, in 1975 was when the book came out.
Right.
So, but it was scary. It was really scary. And I think I find myself even now understanding why people like to be frightened out of their minds by watching stuff like this. But there obviously are a lot of people that like to read this, you included, right? You like this genre.
Now, do you think it's interesting that it's a actual crime story blended into a horror, or does that not make a difference?
All the scarier. It makes it even scarier. The fact that there is based in reality. When you think about television shows, they'll say this is based on an actual occurrence, but the names have been changed.
Right.
It makes it all the more frightening, because it's not just make believe. It's not just somebody had a really creative imagination. There's some fact in this, which scary.
Right. So if this one hasn't gotten your goat, I think this last one will. And again, it's one of my favorites. I think I have a copy of it behind me somewhere. It's The Shining, because if you're talking haunted, you have to talk The Shining. It's the rule. I say so. So, of course, this is probably the one on the list that everybody and their mother knows. No pun intended here.
Yep.
But basically, this covers the story of Jack Torrance, who gets a new job at the Overlook Hotel. In the middle of winter, all the electricity goes out. Everybody starts going stir crazy. And, well, we're not going to spoil the end, but you probably already know what happened because you've probably watched it and seen it or read it. This is probably my favorite for a couple reasons. Obviously, I'm a King fan, but I think what makes this one the best is not only is it a hotel, so it's not even a home. It's literally you're in a business, you're in a hotel. Right. But it's the atmosphere that works. And I think one thing that King does well that others do well, but I think King does better, is uses the atmosphere. You don't need a monster. You don't need excuse me, the gore. You need the atmosphere.
Right.
And I think in The Shining, and again, this is one of the few times where I think the film, now, really quick fact here, because we were talking about 2001 and how the director and the author butted heads. Stephen King did not like the movie, which he actually made somebody else make a miniseries. And if you actually want to watch a good version, watch the miniseries, because it actually follows the book. And again, you have a book and a movie, both well done. Kubrick made good movies, but they're two very different stories. So in this particular case, I would say read the book at least first, and then go watch the movie if you just want something visual. So I just wanted to throw that out there. But what makes this interesting is that for all purposes, the main character, isn't a bad guy. He's just he kind of loses it. And again, it's kind of the same reality thing. It's the cabin fever. You're in the middle of the woods.
Right.
You're going crazy. You happen to have your family with you. And, and what makes it funny is he's also like a writer, but like he's a writer that just can't get his stuff done. Right. So he's kind of like, he's always frustrated that his stuff isn't being published. So he has that mentality of like the perfect killer, but he really isn't a bad dude.
Right.
You know
I
what I mean?
yeah, I love the idea. Also, there's this 5-year-old in this movie, right? It,
So,
yeah.
okay, so for those who remember or don't know, we have the kid with it's the Shining is what it's called.
Mhm.
He has the ability to see things about to happen. He can see basically dead people. He can see ghosts, and that's what makes it so interesting. Because I think at the time, because I think most of his books were written in the '80s, you didn't really do that for the purpose of, I think, being appropriate. Not a lot of people wanted a child to be the main part of a horror movie
Right.
or book. So the fact he kind of did that might have gone against rules. But yeah, it definitely changes the story because when you think about it, it's not so much about Jack, the dad, it's more about the kid.
Right.
And you have to watch or you have to read it from the eyes of the 5-year-old,
Right.
which
Well, which looks at horror different than an adult would look at horror, right? I
exactly
don't
it
know if
looks
that's
more as
right.
monsters under the
Right.
bed as
Right.
it does psychology.
Psychology, monsters in our head rather than monsters under the bed. I just
Right. So before we get to the questions of these three, I mean, do you have a feeling as to why people
um
like?
I don't I still can't I still do not know why people like this.
Okay.
Honestly. But just like I like detective novels, other people like horror. It does something. I think that it's not just the atmosphere; it's the emotion. What it does, it dredge up in you when you are reading,
Right.
when you are watching this. Um, I'm just curious that there are so many people that really want to be scared to death. I mean, that's interesting. So, okay, so I have a question for you. What psychological elements or primal fears do haunted houses actually tap into? What those narratives tap into? What do you think?
I mean, I think you pretty much said it right there. It's it's like the campfire story when you went camping and you told a ghost story. You like to be frightened for the fun. The difference here is you're talking about a place that people will habitate in,
Right,
will work in. Maybe in the case of Amityville, it actually happened.
right, right,
There's something about the building coming to life. And again, like I said, when I was looking through books to go for the video, there's a lot of them. I mean, this is not a new idea. The
right,
idea of a haunted facility,
right,
is all. And if you watch, any of those shows on TV about, like hospitals that are haunted
right,
or, whatever. There's a lot of things about places where bad things happen
right.
seem to be haunted.
Right after the fact, supernatural
Exactly.
kind of stuff. So, you mentioned that Stephen King does a great job with atmosphere. I'm assuming that you think that some of the other authors or of the other books maybe don't do as well a job because it's important. You talk about that they employ different aspects in their writing, in their elements in their writing, like the setting, the atmosphere, the character dynamics. Do each of them do it in their own way, or is one better than the other? What do you think?
I mean, I think, excuse me, and I know we're going to go over this question at a later time, but I think generally it kind of goes down to the person reading it. Some people love a particular author, some people hate that same author, some people love that author's, science fiction, but they hate their fantasy.
Right.
It depends on what it is. I think some people do it better, maybe the people that have been doing it longer. But what's funny is if we're going to go on King, he started writing fantasy. I don't like his fantasy. I don't think he's good at it personally
Mhm.
because he's a horror author. Is it a bad book? Not necessarily, but it takes out of the fact of what the person is used to. And I get it as you go, you morph and you change what you do. But I think it just depends on what you're looking for. If I want a haunted house or haunted whatever, I expect the author I'm writing or reading has done it a few times at least, or at least can do it. You know what I mean? It's why so many series still stay relevant,
Right.
even if the author isn't great. The books are still good
Right.
because they tend to have a way to keep you occupied and motivated to read.
So this show, as we all know, is brought to all of us by the Next Chapter Bookstore.shop. And there are so many really cool things in there. It's a used bookstore, and we want to, be clear about that. You're going to find some really great titles in there. I'm going to put a screen up. You're going to find titles in there. You're also going to find comic books in there. And when you click any one of these QR codes, if you scan it, you're going to go to different areas. Merchandise, you might have seen us when we come back on camera. We are wearing the T-shirts that, from the store, which I love. Books Banter and Beyond. They come in
Very
different
comfortable.
colors. Very, very cool. Comic books and books. Check it out. Really check it out. Scan it, because if you're an avid reader like Rob and I are, it's always great to be able to find a new book to put on your shelf. So I encourage you to do that. I'm going to go ahead and put our ending, but we're going to see everybody next week, right?
Sounds good.
Bye, everyone.